Welcome back to AnimeCons TV. My name is Doug Wilder, and we are at Otakon 2022, talking with a voice actor who's been around since the early days of when I was starting to really get into anime, Beau Billingslea. Very nice to meet you in person, and thank you for agreeing to sit down with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here.
So, first off, I got to ask, do you remember what your first convention experience was like, either as an attendee or as a guest or anything like that?
To tell you the truth, I don't remember my first convention, but I do remember my emotions about it.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a wonderful experience to have an opportunity to interact with the fans, directly, because that was something new. In my career, there weren't those opportunities. So when that happened, when the convention culture grew up, I was really elated because life's about people,
Yep.
right? And so to have the opportunity to talk to the fans and to hear their stories and their reactions to my work was a real blessing.
One of the things I will say is, from especially the early 2000s onward, you're one of those very distinct, very cool voices that you hear it in a dub or a performance, you're like, oh, I know that voice, and it's one of the very distinct ones. Do you get recognized for your voice out in the wild sometimes, or?
Actually, that happens occasionally. It's amazing. The fans have good ears. They can figure it out. They can figure it out. I remember I was narrating a show on the History Channel. I think it was Modern Marvels, and on social media there was a discussion about this. One person said that that's Jet Black narrating Ice Road Truckers, and the other person said, no, there's no way. And I don't know how I got involved in the conversation, but I saw it, and then I interacted and said, well, yep, it was me. And the other guy said, yeah, I told you.
Made that guy's day.
Yeah, right. I tell you, I know that voice when I hear it.
Yeah. You mentioned interacting with the fans and a lot of those positive experiences. Do you have any specific moments that really stand out as really particular, memorable, kind of like peak awesome or anything like that?
Oh yeah, there are a lot of them, but one significant one took place in AnimeX in Los Angeles. The whole Bebop gang was there, and we were having a panel, and then we had open mic, and people were coming up, taking their turns, expressing their thoughts about the show. And then one young lady came up, and she could barely speak, and she, expressing emotionally, she could barely speak because she was about to share something that we were all surprised to hear, that she was about to take her own life. And she was in such a deep depression, and a friend of hers introduced her to Cowboy Bebop, and she could barely get the story out. And for someone to share that in a room of, I don't know, there's been 1,000 people in that room, was really extraordinary. So we all just kind of spontaneously got up and went down and gave her a hug. It was a group Cowboy Bebop hug with her in the middle. And really, we all were weeping.
Yeah.
It was such a powerful moment, and that's something that I will always remember and be thankful to her for having the courage to share that moment with us.
One of the lessons I've heard a couple of people tell other people is that the fans will always find a way to kind of pleasantly surprise you and give you those big emotional boosts from things that you never would have even predicted.
Yeah. And at my table, when the fans come, they share their stories. Nothing as extreme as that. That's pretty extreme. But so many times they're saying, "Well, it helped me through hard times in my life when I was in college, having difficulty," and it just warms my heart when I hear stories like that.
And because you've gone to several different conventions and stuff, is there anything that you see some conventions do that you wish, I wish more conventions would do things like this, or perhaps the opposite of I wish more conventions would kind of avoid this common misstep or anything like that?
I don't really have a complaint about the conventions. That's an interesting question. Sometimes the scheduling is not as convenient as it could be, but it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So, I mean, I think a lot of, both for convention organizers and fans, it's kind of, remember that you guys are still human too. Like, for many of a fan, it's like you can be a larger than life figure, but just like, just be a decent human being to everyone, and you can relate a lot more and have a much better experience.
That's definitely the case. As I say, life's about people, and I feel so fortunate to be able to interact with the fans. When I was doing soap operas, I did, General Hospital, Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, Bold and the Beautiful, and the fans are terrific. They would send us fan mail. We'd get fan mail, and that was neat. And that was basically the closest we would get to interactions with the fans. But in our world of animation and video games, it's face to face, and I get gleeful when I have an opportunity to sit down and talk with fans and hear about their lives and how my work has affected their lives.
As someone who watched Cowboy Bebop initially on the VHS tape and followed your career since then, I have to say that you've definitely made my life a lot better too. So,
thank you so much for saying that.
But you were mentioning interacting with the fans on social media and things like that, so I'll just close out with, if anybody wants to kind of follow what you're up to or things like that, what's the best place for them to do that?
Well, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and so they can friend me up, and chat with me, and find out what I'm doing.
Great. Well, thank you for taking time to speak with us today.
It was my pleasure.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.